What's happening, people? So, the topic today, the thing I wanted to talk about is the idea of when the digital connects with the physical. So, it's something that came up as I was learning some new programming. I think it was Bash programming or maybe Python. I think the most exciting part of learning anything, and let's take programming as an example, is initially what was once a series of kind of disconnected static expressions, these little bits, these units of information and knowledge that you understand, but exist by themselves. They exist alone and static, and it's just a little chunk that you put it there. Okay, I understand that. And what becomes exciting is when those units start to connect with other ones and relationships start to form. There's a logic between these units and a familiarity, like a family, that they exist as a what's the mathematical term? Set. They exist as a set of things. It's not something separate and distinct and disconnected, that they finally, especially when you're learning something, they finally have relationships, and with those relationships they start to make sense, they start to have some use, and that's when things start to take off. Alright, so the between these units, the space and the paths, all this starts to get filled with knowledge and, more importantly, with action. So there's movement between the, let's say, nodes. There's movement between the nodes, and this allows for action. This allows for some kind of practical use of these nodes. They're no longer static, but they become kind of like waypoints where you can go to one and then not just stay there, but move on to something else. Yeah, so you're passing through them, and there is that sense of movement. There is that sense that there is something dynamic. Whereas initially, with this bit of knowledge, this unit of knowledge, there is something very static about it. It's like you sit with it, and it's there, and then you put it aside. And when you progress past that intermediate phase, nothing is static. Nothing ends. There is always somewhere else to go. There is always a connection. No unit is an island. There's no word that isn't connected to another word through some kind of pathway, and that's exciting, naturally exciting. And I think to bring it back to bring it back to the digital and the physical, I think this is what is happening more and more with the digital space, is that we are starting to make these connections with the physical world, so that it ceases to be something distinct and separate, although it never really was, of course. However, there was something quite static about that digital space, and I mean the obvious thing is is the internet. However, it's really starting to have those connections. Internet 2.0, even things like self-driving cars, Internet of Things, all these things are starting to really build relationships with the physical space. And what was once that gap, kind of like a demilitarized zone between the physical and the digital, is being bridged by a lot of the new technologies we see today. And naturally, it's, as I said, it's exciting, and the questions become, what else can I do with this? What can we do? So much opens up that where once we were maybe relieved that we'd arrived somewhere, that ceases to be the case. There's no relief, there's no there's nothing static about it, and you cannot really find that kind of relief in a lot of the technology that's being built today, because it's moving so fast, because those relationships are opening up and the connections are being seen and tried and fail and developed. So yeah, I think that inevitably is the exciting part of the digital space. It is creating connections and relationships with the physical so that neither remains static, that each exists for the other as a waypoint, something to be passed through and moved on from, which, as I said, is exciting and quite confusing sometimes. But ultimately, I mean, this is the revolution. I think this leads to some serious changes both in the physical world and the digital world. All right, have a good day. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.